Hello everybody, it's the 7th of July. Some of you may remember these roadside rescued English elms, and I've been working on into a kind of informal, upright, vague broom, naturalistic style. There is, I should say, a playlist for these trees, and that will be linked in the end screen and in the description below, so you can go back and look at these trees' progression from when I collected them through to today, and well on into the future as I make more videos about them. So I've been letting these trees grow on a bit. They have had one trim which I did video earlier in the spring and then lost that footage, but I'm now going to give them another trim of pieces like this that are going in the wrong direction or extending too far. And as I say, I'm not following the conventions too strongly with these. I once heard an interesting piece about the fact that the first bonsai books sort of came over here after the Second World War, and written and poorly translated in some cases from the Japanese, and because they sold well, other publishers got in on the act and insisted on having books that were similar, which is why we ended up with a whole load of books on bonsai which all say the same. I don't know if that's true, I don't know if it's credible. I certainly know that if you have a book that's a bestseller, you suddenly see lots of other books in a similar vein in the bookshops. I say that, but I haven't been to a bookshop in years. I tend to read books online, or on my Kindle rather, and simply because it's easier, and I know that's a terrible thing, but there you go. But anyway, so that's that for this one. I'll go and get the other one. There are more than two, but this video is just going to focus on the two that have gone into nice new bonsai pots. Okay, so as I say, these are kind of more broom style, but an informal broom rather than a strictly technical Japanese broom style that they'll show you in the books. Certainly those old books that I read in the 70s, 80s, most often than not had line drawings of trees rather than photos of trees to show you how the style should be, which now makes me, in my cynical old age, wonder whether they just couldn't find any trees in that style to show what they thought it should look like and had to draw them. But anyway, this one is different to the other one. The other one is a shorter, squatter tree, whereas this is a taller, more perhaps stately elm. And again, just a question of it had a trim earlier in the year, which the footage was lost. So this is its second trim of the year, and it may well get a third. I've had a lot of growth that stubbornly has grown straight upwards, but I'm going to trim it fairly long, otherwise you lose all the you don't want to lose all the growth. Obviously, if you let the tree grow by this much every year, within a few years you're not going to have a bonsai. But at the same time, if you're developing a tree, if you cut it all off, it won't develop. So it's always a balance. As I say, this longish piece, which is probably about as long as my finger, I can put a little piece of wire on. But I can find a little piece of the right size, I can, in my little pot of reusable wire, and when it's a piece this thin, it won't take much wiring, and because the wood's almost green, well, it is still green really, this will take within a matter of weeks. So I'm making sure the wire isn't tight up against the bark, because it will scar quite quickly, and that would just makes that tree a little bit more interesting. This piece is growing straight up, however, and that piece I'm going to remove, and that piece is trying to grow back across the front of the trunk, and there, and indeed there. Having spent a while building a trunk, and it's always my preferred method to build a trunk first and then try and create the branching afterwards, you don't want to hide it. Okay, that's probably enough for today. I'm hoping that this tree will continue to grow strongly, and I might get another trimmage at least in the next next month or so. We shall see. I will put it back on the bench, and this will be a timey-wimey video, so we'll come back and look at it later. It's the 25th of October now, and autumn is arriving in fits and starts around my garden. I've got some trees that have completely defoliated and are essentially completely now dormant, and I've got others that haven't even noticed we're past summer yet and are still vibrant and growing away quite nicely. This one is somewhere in the middle, in that it's lost a lot of leaves. It's got a lot of yellow leaves. It's gorgeous buttery, it's darker than butter I guess, gorgeous yellow, and still has some very green leaves, so somewhere in the middle. It's also got some dieback that I can see, and now that it's lost its leaves, I'm going to take off that dead piece. I don't want it sitting there all winter. That piece I believe is also dead, and I've got some pieces that are crossing one another, which I'm also going to snip out, as it were. For example, this branch, unseen during the full canopy, has grown back across this part of the branch, so I'm going to cut that back short. And I also not entirely happy with this branch that's just sort of dangling down, but I'm not going to remove it all. I'm going to shorten it and remove that piece, and I think come spring I might find there is more dead bits than I might want to get rid of, but that's essentially it for this tree. There's another branch in back here that's growing across over the top of this one, which I'm going to remove. But essentially I think the tree is relatively well set up. A branch growing upwards, which I'm going to shorten. I think that pretty much sets this tree up for the winter, and what I might do is just remove some of this moss from around the root base, where it'll sit wet all winter and possibly cause a bit of rot. So, as most of you know, if you're a regular viewer, I'm not a big fan of moss. I know some people go to great lengths to cultivate moss on the base of their trees or around the pot. I really don't like it, and I might spend a better part of an hour later just removing the rest of this moss, but I won't make you guys endure me doing that. So yeah, I think that's probably it for this tree. I'll get its partner in crime and have another look at that. So here's the second one in this. Well, calling it a group is probably a misnomer. It's a pair of trees. This tree is perhaps even further along in its autumnal progression. I'm going to take that piece of wire off now. I think it's done its job. This tree was perhaps in a slightly more sheltered part of the garden, maybe. I'm not seeing the dieback that I saw on the other one, which I think was probably caused by that excessively hot period that we had in the summer. I do have the odd little branch that's coming back across and crossing into the space of another, so we'll cut that one back to a bud that's pointing in this direction. We have a bit of an odd branch there. So that's probably as much as I really want to do. As I said with the other tree, this one will probably get a bit of a chop back in early spring once I feel that we're past most danger of frosts. The danger of chopping it back too much now is that you then may get some dieback over winter. So if I get some dieback now, at least I've still got a relatively nice build up of crown to start from next year. Again, a lot of moss, and maybe this pot doesn't drain as well as the other one because I've also got some of this stuff, which is, if I can pull a piece out, the sun's washing that out a little bit. I don't know how well you can see that. This is called liverwort, and it's actually usually a sign that your pot's sitting a little bit wet. So I think possibly the drainage in this pot isn't as good as in the blue pot, because it's essentially the same bonsai mix, soil mix. So it may be that I'll have to think about that for future years and future repots, but for now I'm just going to clean away from the base of the trunk the moss and things, and worry about cleaning the rest off later. We'll give you a quick 360, and I probably said at the beginning of this video, both of these trees were pulled out of the ground literally as suckers that had come from the hedgerow and rooted into the grit at the side of the road. So I do like me some cheap material. So that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please take care of yourselves. Stay safe, everybody.